Hey everyone, welcome to our newest segment that we're doing. It is Recruiter's Corner, and today we are actually bringing on Washington State Patrol Trooper Heather Axtman, who is a recruiter for the State Patrol. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so to get started, I always like to kind of find out who our recruiters are. So tell us a little bit about you and how you got to be with the State Patrol.
So, I have just passed my 16th year with the Washington State Patrol in August. I started on the west side. So, in my cadet days, I started in Tacoma. After graduation, they put me in Bellevue. And then I transferred myself up to the Everett location. And I had been there up until 3 years ago when I was blessed enough to be able to be one of the recruiters for the Washington State Patrol. And they sent me over to Spokane.
Okay. All right. So you're in Spokane now. That's where you kind of
I am.
hang out. Okay. And you're pretty active on Instagram, aren't you?
I love Instagram.
I can tell. I can tell. And I just saw one of your questions today. What do you do on a daily basis? There's one thing that goes out that I love. Do
On
you
a
know what I'm
daily
talking about?
basis, I do a daily question, and it's random. It has nothing to do with police work whatsoever. It's just a fun, engaging post that I put on my work Instagram. Um, and it's anywhere from mainly food because I love food. So the last couple of days has been like, which what would you rather have? Like I think
Hmm.
today's is lasagna or fettuccine alfredo.
Hmm.
I just love a daily question. And I've been doing it for so long that I have a lot of followers that if I don't post a daily question, they'll go into my DMs and be like, "Where's my question for the day?" So it's
Hmm.
just one of those engaging things that everyone just loves to have kind of a mindless interaction, but something that they can look forward to.
Right. And my answer for the day is lasagna. That's what I chose. So so you do another thing that comes up every once in a while. Is it running with a recruiter
Run
or
with a recruiter.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So talk about
So
your
I
little running escapades.
I love running, and I'm a wife and I'm a mom, so that is my life outside of the patrol. And as any police officer will tell you, being a police officer is physically, emotionally, and mentally exhausting at times. So we all need an outlet, and my healthy outlet is working out and running.
Mhm.
I never grew up as a runner. That was never a passion. I grew up in sports, but never fell in love with running until the academy where they make you run. And I decided I might as well like this or I'm going to hate my life in the academy. So I just started a little bit of running and then really actively got into it a little over a year ago, where I signed up for a marathon here in Spokane, 26.2 miles. And it was, that's a long ways, but you know that you fall in love with running when you say, just give me a few hours. I just need to go out for a 15-mile run. It's only 16 miles or whatever it is for the day. So I hashtag it with run with a recruiter. Sometimes I work out with a recruiter, but that's my main hashtag that I do. And it's a motivational builder. I think everybody, they look to Instagram for their influencers, if you
Mhm.
will, to encourage them on a lifestyle that they're either looking into or already partaking with. So mine is running to show that if you just take a little sliver of your day out for yourself and whatever that is in a healthy environment, and just and go put some energy into yourself, that really whatever you face for that day is you can overcome because you've already essentially taken that slice of the pie out for something that you enjoy.
Right, right. So with your Instagram, are you finding that you're engaging with potential applicants, or are you getting folks that who have already accepted a position with State Patrol? Where are you at in that whole
Both.
scheme? Okay.
I have people that I've helped hire that have still followed me. They followed me while they're maybe before their hiring process or currently into their hiring process, and then they've gotten hired. I have troopers that follow me. I have people that might have zero desire to be a police officer, and that is absolutely okay with me. I really believe that it's that building the bridge between the community and the police, and to show them I'm a normal person. I am no different than them. I just have a different career. choice. But ultimately we're kind of the same. I'm a wife and I'm a mom and I do all things that they normally do. I just put a uniform on for a daily job.
Right. Okay. Well, and when we talk about the job, and we talk about state patrols across the country, every state patrol is a little bit different. So, what responsibility does Washington State Patrol have in Washington State?
So the Washington State Patrol is a very proactive law enforcement agency. We are mainly on the highways and the freeways. However, we don't have a jurisdiction for the most part. I can go into school zones. I can actively patrol into city streets and anything like that. However, when a calls for service comes out, such as a disabled or a crash, maybe somebody driving erratically and somebody's calling in for 911, those are the main responsibilities that I'm going to make sure that I am out in. Right here in Spokane, it's going to be I-90 or 395 or one of the major highways or freeways that are going through the city. On the west side, that is it. Everyone thinks I-5, but a state trooper is not confined to I-5. We are divided up into 8 districts, and oftentimes that trooper is assigned to one county, maybe multiple counties, depending on the size of the district, essentially
Hmm.
like in the eastern part of the state. But we're very proactive. We start and end in our driveway. We do not have roll call. The car goes home with us. We start our shift there, and the minute you leave your driveway is essentially when you're starting to patrol. And I was just talking to my husband about this. My husband's a state trooper, and we were driving yesterday, and somebody uh, didn't use their turn signal, and he's like, "Oh, that just grinds my gears." I'm like, "Isn't it funny? As after all these years, you just kind of find what you will guaranteed stop." I'm like,
Hmm.
mine personally is you're not wearing your seatbelt, you're going to talk to me. Like that is just one that I'm very passionate about. And each trooper has their RCW, for lack of better words, of
Right.
what they've become very passionate about. And uh, so as a state trooper, you get that freedom. I don't have a sergeant that starts in the beginning of the shift to say, "Hey, you need to go to X, Y, and Z and start looking for this person or this particular car," or anything like that. We are very independent. We work in the car by ourselves, and we have the freedom to go where we want within the assigned area that we're assigned.
Okay. And on the west part of the state, I believe because of the Puget Sound and our ferry system, do you guys not have responsibility on the ferries that go across
We
the Puget Sound?
we do. So we have the Homeland Security Division. Um, So the state patrol is not just, people think just that blue uniform. We
Right.
are so much more than that. We have over 100 different detective positions. We have our own bomb squad. We have our own SWAT team. We have 2 different canine units. You mentioned Homeland Security. One of those canine units are the bomb sniffing canines that are essentially in charge of making sure that our ferry system is extremely safe. It's the largest ferry system in the world that Washington State Patrol takes over along with the federal government in that sense. But they're in charge of that. Canine. The other canine unit that we have is the drug sniffing dogs. We do not have human tracking dogs. That's nothing the patrol has ever had. So, but those 2 canine units are a very large part of our agency.
Okay. And then for enforcement efforts, do you have any sort of air support at all, airplanes at all?
We do. Our aircraft is stationed over in Olympia. I don't know exactly how many. We have Cessnas and King Air, and the King Air is the one that flies around like the chief and the governor. Um, and then the Cessnas are the ones that do the traffic. Uh, how would I say that? I don't want to say traffic control, but
Traffic enforcement?
enforcement. Thank you. Um, So, especially when it came down in 2021, where the pursuit laws drastically changed, they were a huge help to not just the Washington State Patrol, but agencies across the board in order to take those over from the vision of the sky and allow us as the boots on the ground to back off. So, we would eventually be in a position where eventually that fleeing car will stop.
Hmm.
And so they would set us up in a position of where that car currently is or where it stopped.
Okay. And are the pilots troopers as well?
They are. So they are commissioned troopers. In order to get a specialty in the Washington State Patrol, generally speaking, you're going to be a trooper, a road trooper in the car. for about 4 years
Okay.
before you can advance up into any of those specialty positions. A pilot is a specialty position.
Hmm.
One thing that the State Patrol does that is not super common in the police world is you can hold that specialty position from the time you get it until you choose to exit it. There's not a certain time frame.
Hmm.
So if you get it at the 4 year mark, we retire at 25 years, you can essentially have the next 20 plus years as a pilot, and nobody's forcing you out of that.
Okay. And then the unit that I'm always, I mean, it's my baby. I mean, that was one of the units that I helped start up at my agency, the motor unit that you guys have.
We do. So we have motors units across the state. There's a couple. I think Yakima doesn't have them. Um, but every other district, I believe, has motors. There's only 2 motors currently here in Spokane.
Hmm.
And when I say Spokane, I mean, that's all of District 4. So we're looking at anything from Colfax all the way up to Ferry County. So it's a very large area of the eastern part of the state where there's only 2 motors. Western Washington, they're obviously more prevalent. They have a lot more motors opportunities, but that's again, there's so many assignments that the motors unit can have. Yes, they're a main traffic law enforcement or traffic enforcement tool that we use, but they also do escorts. They do like the major when big dignitaries come into town or sports teams, anything like that. Those are our guys that are really focused on that in that portion.
Right. So we talked about quite a few. Are there any other units that we haven't talked about that that applicants might be interested in? Do you have your own bomb squad as well?
We do have our own bomb squad. It's another one that's again 4 years on the road.
Hmm.
We want to
Hmm.
make sure that and when I tell an applicant that, of course, 4 years sounds like a long time, but when you're sitting in this driver's seat, 4 years goes by so stinking quick that
Hmm.
you're just trying to learn grasp the job and understand what your base job is, because our SWAT team and our bomb team, they're not full-time teams. So you're not going to be just assigned to that. It's going to be
Hmm.
an additional duty. So we
Okay.
want to see that you have the capability of doing your main duty as a state trooper, which is traffic enforcement, collision investigation, criminal investigations, and that you've kept up on all of your paperwork. There's
Hmm.
a ton of fun to be had, but at the end of the fun, there's a ton of paperwork to be had as well. So we need to see that you keep up on your paperwork and that it is the main duties as a trooper is being met before we go on and have you do a specialty position.
Right, right. And when I was doing recruiting, the big question that I always had from applicants was always about detectives. And I know
Yeah.
State Patrol has detectives. So what are the responsibilities for your detectives?
It depends on what detective unit you're looking into. We have criminal investigation division. So a lot of times historically in the past that they mainly took care of crashes and felony crashes. I mean, not just
Mhm.
a 2-car collision that somebody fender bender that's been out here. Felony meaning a criminal act occurred in order for that to happen, and somebody has been seriously hurt or a life has been lost in that collision. That has that is still their one of their main things that they focus on. But a lot of our criminal investigation division detectives also help investigate the shootings that are occurring um, across the state. So they
Mhm.
help investigate with other city agencies or county agencies that might be their jurisdiction, but they're on a um, kind of a shooting team in the sense that they
Right.
understand the dynamics of that. We have um, MECTEF, which is Missing and Exploited Children's Task Force. That is another, in my opinion, that is very important work to make sure that our kids in our community stay safe. And so they
Mhm.
have those detectives. We have detectives that work for LNI. We have, uh, oh my gosh, there's 100 different detective positions statewide. So we have a narcotics division. We have it we did have auto theft. Auto theft detectives were disbanded and put into other areas. Whether or not that opens back up in the future, I have no idea. Um, but each area in the state has a detective unit that they can, like Spokane has detective units, Yakima has detectives, Kennewick has detectives. So we have them all scattered throughout the state in order to help the mission of the State Patrol.
Okay. And one thing that I've learned, and maybe you can speak a little more on this, because my time teaching at the academy, I trained a lot of recruits from small agencies out in those really desolate counties. And they continued to tell me state patrol may be my only backup. So you guys also, not just traffic, but you have to know all the laws and understand all enforcement action. Is that correct when it comes to
Oh,
criminal matters?
absolutely. We are not limited to just traffic laws.
Hmm.
There are a lot of times that, and vice versa, where a county unit might be my only backup in some areas, or uh, yeah, you get out towards, I can speak on my, I've worked all across the state, but in my area, you have like Reardon or Davenport. Those are some really small areas that you may have one county deputy and a trooper. Or
Right.
if you think Ferry County, there's one trooper assigned up there, and I think they have 3 county guys.
Hmm.
Um, we rely heavily upon each other. So yes, when it comes to understanding all the variation of laws, we need to know those, because there's going to be times that we're responding to that domestic violence call, or we're that's not our, you don't think of that when you think Washington State Patrol. You think mainly
Hmm.
we're pulling people over to give them speeding tickets. That's what most people think when they think the Washington State Patrol, but we're so much larger than that.
Right, right. And I think that's why I wanted to bring that up, is because people do think just traffic enforcement for Washington State Patrol, and really you guys, I mean, you've got that specialty in traffic, because I mean, I knew whenever I had a question, I was calling a trooper to give me the answer for a traffic thing, but there's many times where my stuff ended up on the interstate, and patrol would be there to help out, and I felt very comfortable with any of the troopers that would show up. So I think it's important for applicants to know that you're not just going to be doing traffic with the state patrol. You have opportunities to do a lot of other things.
Absolutely.
All right. So what about the salary and benefits for someone coming in, a new recruit coming in? What does the pay look like? What kind of benefits can they expect?
So we are very blessed in the sense that we have it written into state law that we have to be part of the top 6 paid agencies in the state. Those comparables are Seattle PD, King County, Tacoma, Snohomish County, Vancouver PD, and Spokane PD. When those guys get, and gals get a
Hmm.
raise that following year, um, they average all that good stuff out. That's pay grades well above me, and they come back with our raise.
Hmm.
So at no point in the rest of my career will I have to worry about, like, oh my gosh, such and such from those other agencies are getting paid so much more. I know our pay raise is going to be coming. So we will be looking at a very substantial pay raise come 2025. Um, so right now, so we do on the job training and
Hmm.
continual hire. It's a little bit different than a lot of agencies where they wait until that academy class is starting, where we will not. We are currently hiring cadets that will be on the job training. They're 40 hours a week. All of their benefits start. And I say this, but I don't think people understand. We have our retirement clock starts, quote unquote, meaning the day you get hired, 25 years from that date is your retirement date. So you may not be a commissioned trooper, you're a cadet starting out, but all of that time counts. So we are currently hiring cadets right now that will not enter an academy class until April 20th of 2025.
Okay.
So this entire time that they're getting hired, their 40 hours is going to be spent in the car with a trooper. So they're sitting in the passenger seat, but they're learning our computer system. They're learning our radio system. They're learning investigations. They're learning how to create a collision on sector, which is the program we use. They're learning, they might sit in with our communications. Washington State Patrol has our own communications. So they only dispatch for troopers. So they might sit in that. We have our own commercial vehicle. They may go do a ride along with them. So they understand the intricacies of what the Washington State Patrol has. They're getting paid. They're getting paid just shy of $70,000 a year for all of that training. Right off the street after our hiring system, after hiring and going through that entire process, before they're officially trained, that is their on the job training. With this pay raise that's coming July 2025, they will be starting out at just about $92,000 a year right out of the gate as a brand new trooper. That's, in my opinion, that is wild money. I couldn't imagine getting that right out of the gate. 16 years ago, that was not what the pay was. And it's not, if I don't believe that you get into any first responder for the pay.
Right.
This job is far too emotionally, mentally, and physically challenging to think that you're going to drive a Ferrari in your off time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still a substantial amount of money to get paid doing this career. I can tell you, I'm so proud to be able to tell you that I'm a Washington State Trooper. It's almost silly. So to know that the pride that I hold to wear this uniform and the benefits that come along with it, I think it's incredible.
So you guys have your own academy, correct?
We do.
How long is your academy?
Our academy is 6 months.
Okay.
It's a live-in academy. After the first 3 weeks, let me back this up. The entire time of the 6 months, you get to leave during the weekends. They released you at 5 o'clock on Friday, and you're set to be back at 8 a.m. on Monday. However, during that first 3 weeks, you're not allowed to leave in the evenings of Monday through Friday. Or I'm sorry, Monday through Thursday, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
After that, you can leave if you choose to. Meaning, if you lived in Tacoma, because our academy is in Shelton, which is southwest of Olympia. If you lived in the Olympia Tacoma area and you wanted to go battle the traffic back home for the evening, you absolutely can. That is a newer thing for the Washington State Patrol. We've always had a live-in academy, and you don't get to go home during the week. So a new adjustment is that we get to go home during the week. And it benefits people that they may have kids at home. One of the parents may need to help out with a school routine, or, maybe the sports or something is happening. And so we still keep that family environment where they can go home in the evening. From my understanding, not a lot of people use that, because you get released at 5 o'clock at night and you're back to class at 8 a.m. in the morning. But the option absolutely is there. So and you're there for 6 months. After that, we then put you on a 10-week coaching trip with a field training officer. We don't commission you until after that coaching trip is fully completed. That is also unlike other agencies where they're going to commission you and then put you on your coaching trip. We're opposite of that. We will commission you and you'll have a giant graduation. We're very traditional in the Washington State Patrol. We take our graduation very serious, and you graduate on the marble floors of the rotunda of the Capitol.
Yeah, and I've seen some of the videos from that, and it's an event, that is for sure. When you graduate, it's great. Yeah.
Very memorable.
Yeah, and you do it not only for the troopers, you do it for your commercial motor vehicle folks as well, right?
Yes, we do.
All right. One question that Ken and I always like to delve down when we talk about academies. Would you consider your academy what we like to coin the phrase a gentleman's academy, or is it a little bit rougher than just, no PT, anything like that? Or is it like what people think of an academy should be?
What is a gentleman's academy?
I want to try to be politically correct since I'm associated with the Washington Academy. Is there any physical training at all?
So, like, are you getting yelled at?
Are you getting yelled at? Yeah, that kind of
Okay,
thing.
yes, we do. It is. I'm not prior military, so I can't speak. I get that question a lot. If it's like military boot camp, I'm not prior military, so I don't know firsthand of what that would be like. However, we are. Yes, all state troopers go to class with state troopers, so we are not lined up with anybody else. Our academy is separate, and you are all there for the exact same agency. With that said, we have barracks, really kind of dorm rooms, that your beds are made a certain way, your uniforms are hung up a certain way, your boots are cleaned a certain way. And if you and I were in academy together and I'm wearing short sleeve and you're wearing long sleeve, we're probably going to have some punishment with that. And that's simply because you didn't check on your brother. You didn't check to make sure that I was okay. I didn't check to make sure that you were okay. So if you're not uniformed or
Hmm.
things are a little off kilter, yeah, you're getting beds tossed. You're getting voices are getting raised at you. You're getting
Okay.
push-ups. You're
All
doing
right.
jumping jacks. I think they call it the front leaning rest position is what they called it when I was in academy. And that's just like the plank position
Yep.
in what we call the pit.
Hmm.
Um, the pit it is, it's a very amazing learning opportunity that the Washington State Patrol gives their cadets
Uh-huh.
of of you're going to find out real quick what you did wrong as a whole, and hopefully you're going to be able to self-correct that so that you're not back in the pit doing push-ups or squats or jumping jacks, or because yeah, there it's a correcting area that we like to have.
And I like how you put it as a learning opportunity, not a punishment.
Right, it is a learning opportunity.
Yeah. So that's what we're talking about. I mean, when we talk about a gentleman's academy, that's more of the ones that are starting to act more like a community college, where you just go to class, you learn some stuff, and then you move on to the next, that kind of thing. So
Right, so we do have, there is a lot of classroom time,
right,
with
right.
I think there's like a 5 or 10 minute break between. And oftentimes when I was there, and my understanding it's still happening, um, that break is not really a break. It's them correcting you on the mistakes they have found.
Right.
Meaning like um, bed drills, or like your bed sheets made, like we had a 45-degree angle. You don't just get to walk out of your room making it look like a hot mess. We are a professional agency that expects our people to uphold that professionalism and detail oriented. The
Hmm.
biggest thing is, if it's the small things matter,
Hmm.
and that's oftentimes what we try to train into our cadets is small things matter. If you're not focusing on the small things, you could ultimately get hurt or worse out here when you get into the real world. In the static environment, those small things matter because they're smaller in the real world, and they could ultimately hurt you, and we don't want to lose anybody.
Right, right. So, what I'd like to do next is really talk about the area that a trooper would work, because you guys have done something new, and we'll get to it about reaching out to laterals. So, there's going to be we have people across the United States that listen to us who may be interested in becoming a trooper. So, they hear on the news about Washington State. They've never been out here. So, why don't you tell us what Washington State is like as a place to work and a place to go out and play? I mean, why is it so enticing to come here?
I'm born and raised in Washington State. I was born and raised over in Forks, Washington, if anybody knows where that's at. Twilight, most people think. Graduated high school in Chehalis and lived on that I-5 corridor much of my life. I'm My lifestyle very much aligns with uh, the the activities of Washington State. I used to snowboard all the time when I was growing up. But outdoor activities, is it people think they think Washington as a whole, and they're like, oh my gosh, you guys are drowning in the rain, which I really don't believe. I think that, yeah, it rains especially Western Washington. It rains often, but my lifestyle didn't really change. I still went outside. I still did all the things. But the amount of fishing, the amount of hunting, the rivers, the lakes, the mountains, it is absolutely breathtaking here. I really do not know a person that has visited Washington State and said, just if you look at Washington State and everything that we have, like it is beautiful here.
Hmm.
You come onto the eastern side of the state and it's almost like an entire different state. You have all four seasons that are very prominent. It's desert. We had like 3 feet of snow here in Spokane when I first moved, and I was like, pump the brakes. I am not really sure about this. What is happening? I think this is just how I live, and I will never see green grass ever again. And then that same summer, it was like 115. So we have so much to offer. And again, Eastern Washington, your lakes, your rivers, your mountains. It is the skiing to the fishing to the swimming little holes to the hot springs to the hiking. It is an outdoorsman dream in Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's for play. For work, where I work here in Eastern Washington, I feel very supported by the communities here. Um, as Washington State Patrol, I feel very valued as an employee of the Washington State Patrol, and I don't think a lot of people can actually say that in their jobs or career choices of whatever they make. I truly feel valued and heard in my everyday work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's for work wise.
Mm-hmm.
It's also it Washington State is so interesting in the sense that you can have. I was actually just on the phone earlier today with an applicant from Pennsylvania who's going to come in for his polygraph, and he said, "I'm going to stay there for a few days. What's there to do?" Well, he's going to stay in Washington. So I was like, "Oh my gosh." If you like, he mentioned he liked breweries, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, say less. Here's where you're gonna go. He wanted to do some hikes. Say less. This is where you're gonna go. So just all of the things that he personally was interested in, I was able to guide him on where to go. And that's for the Western Washington portion because he's not coming over to Eastern Washington. However, if you want to stay in a very metropolitan area and you want the shopping and you want the food and you want all of that, Washington has that to offer. If you like farmlands, if you like quiet, if you like desert, if you like country living, Washington State has that. So we
Mm-hmm.
truly have, I believe, whatever your fun is or whatever your lifestyle is in the sense of your outdoor, what you do outside of work. I love to ride on our quads and side by sides and go in our pool and hang out with my kids, garden, those kind of things. I get all that on my property. I live on 10 acres and we have all that. And you get that. You get kind of whatever lifestyle you want. If you want busy
Mm-hmm.
metropolitan city life, we have that. If you want small town, quiet country life, we have that. And we have everything in between. For the Washington, so when you come back and ask, what's the placement like of Washington State or how do you get that? 70% of our academy class gets their first or second choice of their wish list.
Oh.
It's not like a military wish list that you're like, I wish to go to Hawaii. And they're like, that's a great wish. We're sending you to wherever.
Mm-hmm.
Ours is an actual wish list. We take into account why you ask for those. We give you 3 different options on where you want. And then we give you an option to back that up. So it's not just like we have a cadets coming in and saying, I want Ritzville because that's where I was born and raised. I might have an applicant that says, I want Ritzville because I own a home, my spouse works there, and my kids are integrated in the community. We take that into account. And if there's an opening, that is who's going to get that. So 70% of our academy class gets their first or second choice.
Okay. Wow, that's better placement than I thought it was. So it's good that you guys make those accommodations
And
for
long
for
gone are the
people.
days that it's I-5 corridor. I still run into that of, especially
Mm-hmm.
working in Eastern Washington. I don't want to go to I-5. I'm not going to sign up for the Washington State Patrol. Long gone are those days. We have so many vacancies throughout the state that it's not uncommon to be placed in Moses Lake or into the Tri-Cities or into Yakima or somewhere that's Eastern Washington. That's not an uncommon goal for an applicant to come in and expect.
All right. Well, now you've got our listeners' attention. They're really reeled in. I mean, you talk about the money, you talk about how great it is to live and play there. For an entry level trooper applicant, what's the hiring process for an entry level?
So we will do publicsafetytesting.com for your written and your physical. You can do it at a location if you want to. If you're out of state or the times just don't line up, they also have an online option. It's proctored. Somebody's watching you take the test to make sure that it's you taking the test. And it takes about, from my understanding, about 4 hours to take that test. Or there's multiple within that 4-hour block. The physical fitness test, we go onto the CJTC standards for the same across the board that everybody gets. And that's 20 push-ups in 90 seconds, 25 sit-ups in 90 seconds, and 35 squat thrusts in 3 minutes. That's essentially like a burpee without the push-up at the end. And that's CJTC standards to get into the hiring process. That, and then you're going to apply at careers.wa.gov. Those two things have to marry each other in order for us to start you into the hiring process. Right out of the gate, we're going to put you into a polygraph. There's not an agency in the state of Washington that's not going to put you through a polygraph. I tell all of the applicants, there's a lot of things that we can work with. We cannot work with liars. So if you're not willing to admit the facts, or you want to dance around facts and not give us at all, you're really going to hurt your chances and you're going to be disqualified. There's a difference in polygraph. Not meeting standards and failing a polygraph are two very different things. The Washington State Patrol has a zero tolerance policy on any conviction of a DUI at any point in your life. If you come to us and say, hey, I've had a DUI, that's just not meeting standards. We're not going to hold any grudges. That's just not meeting standards. And we allow you to go on your merry way, because there's a lot of very good agencies out there that have a different standard. Now, if you come in with that DUI and you're adamant that that is not a thing and you want to lie about it and you want to try to hide it, that's failing a polygraph. That is a different situation when you go off and you try to explain that to other agencies. So that's right out of the gate. We're going to put you through a polygraph. From the polygraph, you know that day whether or not you passed polygraph or not. Upon passing, your file goes right into the background investigation. The background is generally the longest portion of our whole hiring process. We need you to make sure that all of the references that you're giving us, they have a valid email address and a valid phone number. If your references are not willing to call us back or email us back, your application is just being delayed. So that is what we want to avoid. A passing background, you get put back into an oral board. Because we're a state entity and we have 6 recruiters statewide, our oral board is actually done virtually through the platform of Teams. So it's about an hour. There's structured questions, and there's going to be 3 to 4 people on that board. From oral board, you'll know that day whether or not you pass. And then we're going to put you right into your psychological examination and interview, and then your medical. After all of that, you're successful, you wrapped up, you get the offer of employment.
Okay, so for lateral hiring, what's the different process? Do you have a different process, or is it the same process as entry level?
So it's a slightly different process because, of course, they don't have to go through public safety testing. They're going to put their application in through careers.wa.gov, and in the search bar, they'll look up lateral. They'll put all that. Then there's a series of questions that they're going to ask for documentation. So like their CJTC certificate, all of that, so that we can send that over to CJTC and see that they are a certified peace officer. Our laterals, they need to be off probation of whatever agency that is. That's one of the biggest things is usually probations are about a year. So off probation, and they're going to verify all of the documentation of that. Then from there, they go right into background, and they contact their current agency and all of their references. People are hesitant on that. They don't love that right out of the gate, their agency is going to be notified. That has been, in my experience, when laterals call me, that has been their biggest concern is, well, if my agency is contacted, they know I'm looking elsewhere, and what if I'm not picked up? And now how do I navigate those waters? I don't have that answer for you. I just know that people that make decisions far beyond me have decided that background is right out of the gate. And that takes, I would say, probably the longest portion of that hiring process is just to all of that background. And making sure that they get whatever they need through that. Then they go into a command interview. So I had talked about our oral boards a little bit, where there's 6 recruiters statewide, and that they would do an entry level would do their oral board with a recruiter. A lateral is going to do their oral board with 3 separate captains. So it's a much higher level in our agency that are interviewing them. From there, they go into a polygraph examination, then their psych and medical.
Okay.
So that's the big difference. Polygraph is right at the beginning of our entry level, and it's towards the end for a lateral.
Okay. All right. And about how long is the process, the hiring process for a lateral?
I don't know exactly. Like for an entry level, it's 2 to 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Lateral, I would say probably about the same, depending on their background, depending on how quick their references come or how quick the agencies get back to us. They're hiring. They're a little bit different in the sense that for an entry level, we look for classes of 60 cadets.
Mm-hmm.
For a lateral class, we're approved for, we have 3 coming up, October being our first one, and they want 15 each. So it's a much smaller academy.
Right.
It's not like entry level where they are not getting yelled at. They're not going to the pit. In fact, they don't even go to our academy grounds for their academy. They get put in Helen Summers, which is our headquarters. They're there for 4 weeks with a 4-week coaching trip.
Okay.
So 8 weeks in total, as opposed to the 8.5 months for an entry level.
Okay. All right. So the whole lateral thing, that's a new venture for you guys, is it not?
That's a very new adventure for the Washington State Patrol. In the over 100 years of history that Washington State Patrol has, we just graduated a few months ago. I want to say in May, the first lateral class graduated, and they had 9 laterals. So yeah, that embarked on a whole new ground for the Washington State Patrol, because I had spoke about it a little bit earlier. The Washington State Patrol troopers go to academy with troopers or other people that are trying to become a trooper, where you come in with laterals. Same thing though. They're learning their organization. They're learning our traditions. And from my understanding, the 9 that graduated are just as proud to wear this French blue uniform as I have been for so long. And I love that. I love that they want to be state troopers. They believe in the mission of the Washington State Patrol, and they're embracing that tradition and the love of the agency that so many of us carry.
Right. All right. I think that is awesome. I think it speaks a lot about what you guys have done taking on laterals. I mean, again, like you said, it's a new experience, and that you had those laterals coming out of that academy speaking so highly about the experience they had.
I love that. I
Yeah.
know that, I mean, 4 weeks doesn't sound like a lot of time, 4 weeks for 40 hours. They're already police officers. We respect the training that they have already been through, and the knowledge that they're coming into this agency with. And we're just making sure that we have our mission and our mottos that we want them to embrace so gracefully that we have for so long. The tradition of the Washington State Patrol is weighed so heavily upon. We are a very traditional organization, from the French blue uniform to that campaign hat. I mean, people just know what a state trooper maybe looks like, maybe not know what they do, but knows that we're a very traditional agency and we embrace that tradition. So I love to hear those laterals, and I look forward to having all those other laterals. I've had so many reach out to me from across the nation, from Colorado to Florida to from California. And just my biggest is that anybody that asks, what about a lateral? I always say Washington State Patrol falls under the 9th Circuit. So just research 9th Circuit. We're a very different policing here in the Pacific Northwest than a lot of the nation. I'm very proud of the policing that we do, but I want to make sure that it's vastly different than policing maybe in Louisiana. So to understand the policing that we do and how we do it up here, not just in our agency, but agencies across the board throughout Washington State and every state that falls under the 9th Circuit, that those laterals understand the kind of policing that they're going to get themselves into.
All right. So you got some people out there, I'm sure, that are interested in the State Patrol now. How do they get a hold of you? How do they contact a recruiter in order to get the process started?
So if they go to www.wsp.wa.gov, There's a whole drop down. It says be a trooper. Scroll down. You can see my face if you want to talk to me. Particularly, there's 6 recruiters statewide. All of us would be happy. Whether you are entry level, trying to figure out and navigate the waters of entry level, we are happy to do that, to a lateral. And the thing with the Washington State Patrol is a lot of people just focus on that uniform. There's a lot more to this agency than that. We have more support staff than we have uniformed personnel. And I mean, from mechanics to cooks to payroll to human resources to general office administration, and a ton. One huge benefit that I didn't talk about earlier is we don't require you to have a college education. However, across the board, we will pay for up to a master's degree at the University of Washington rates for you, at tuition reimbursement, and that includes books. So from uniformed personnel to support staff, our agency would not be able to be the agency we are without the support staff that we have. There's, like I said, I want to say 700 people in troopers in FOB, mm-hmm. and like 15 to 2,000 support staff. So our agency is giant, but mainly made up of people that want to be the support.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I mean, after talking to you, I had my perceptions of what the State Patrol was. And I knew several years ago, State Patrol was not paid as well as everyone else. And I'm glad to see that, our legislatures went ahead and made that change. So you guys are getting the pay you deserve. I think it's a viable option for a lot of candidates. I mean, everyone has their niche, and State Patrol might be some of our listeners' niche. So I want to thank you, Trooper Axtman, for being on the show today. And I'm hoping that we're going to get some people that are going to reach out to you, that they want to go ahead and get involved with the State Patrol. Or if not, maybe follow you on Instagram.
I love followers. I love my Instagram. I don't post a whole lot of posts. And if I do, they're like reels. But my stories, I love the interaction of my stories. So if you want to follow me, it's at Trooper Heather Axtman. And it's mindless, fun stuff on a story. I mean, who doesn't want to know if you want lasagna or fettuccine Alfredo?
I would agree. It is a lot of fun. So I want to thank you for being on this episode of Recruiter's Corner, and we will talk to all you listeners later.